photographing the way I do, but with my colors, this will change everything.
I got to see each frame, each position of its wing, and they're so beautiful that I have never seen before.
Being able to move quickly and working at my brain's pace and getting those shots in the moment. Having this camera allows you to go out and create the way you want to create.
Until you use it, you cannot even imagine what you have missed.
It's something I've never seen before in my entire life. It's something totally different.
Nikon Z6 III. Outperform.
Introducing ISO Color Edge. Precision is essential for any professional working with images. Whether you're an artist, a retoucher, or a visual effects specialist, you need to know that what you see at the start of a project is precisely what you'll get at the end. Color Edge monitors give consistent, reliable accuracy that guarantee no surprises within your color workflow. So what you see in real life is what you see on screen, and what you see on screen is what you see in real life. That's precisely why professionals all over the world trust ISO Color Edge for their image creation. ISO Color Edge. Discover living, breathing color.
One. Good evening and welcome to the judging of the 15th category in the 2025 Australian Photographic Prize. Tonight we are judging the Photographic Artist category. So wherever you're tuning in for, we really hope that you enjoy this category. It's going to be full of some wonderful composite and incredibly creative images. So I think it's an absolute delight, and I'm sure you'll find that as well. My name's Robin Campbell. I'm the founding director of the Australian Photographic Prize. I'm here on behalf of our 2025 competition director, Daniel Bingham, and Director of Judging, Chris Anderson, to welcome you to what is going to be, I think, an amazing night of judging. Also, big thank you to Nathan Bingham, who's running our live stream, and Helen, who is our scribe. In Australia, we open events like this with an acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Wurrung people of the Kulin Nations, the traditional custodians of the land on which this event is hosted today. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. We'd also like to really thank our sponsors for their contributions. Our major sponsor, Nikon. Thank you so much, Nikon. We are just so thankful for the $5,000 that you are giving to our overall winner. $5,000 in Nikon equipment. How cool is that? I could probably buy some lenses with that myself. I'd also really like to thank our division sponsors, AZO, who are supporting the Creative Photographer of the Year with a monitor valued over $2,500, KL and Godox, who are sponsoring our Classic division, and Ilford, who are sponsoring our Single Capture division. Thank you also to Photography Studies College, who are offering a $1,500 scholarship to our High School Photographer of the Year. And Print Shop, we really appreciate your contribution of a print consultation and 2 A1 prints. Fantastic. I really hope we've got lots of students tuning in tonight, because there is so much valuable education that's about to come out of this judging session. So guys, take the time to thank the sponsors when you can. Buy their gear, use it, celebrate it. We love them. Thank you so much to our sponsors. So here's how tonight's judging will run. Each finalist image will be assessed by our live expert panel with real-time commentary, insights, and challenges. Scores will be displayed on screen, and then once all of the images have been judged, the panel will deliberate offline to determine the top 3 place getters. If you want to know who they are, you'll need to tune in to our live awards presentation coming up this Sunday. So it's only a couple of days away, guys, and it starts from 5 o'clock onwards. So before we start our judging, which I know everyone's hanging out for, we're going to have a look at the top 30 photographic artist images that are about to be judged. Over to you, Nathan. I now have the honour of introducing our panel mentor for tonight, Sarah Edmonds. Sarah is an award-winning British photographer and professional retoucher who is currently based in Italy. She specialises in portraiture and fine art photography, and her work is known for its elegant finish and its visual impact, combining strong creative vision with technical precision. She's a double master with Icon, a fellow with the Society of Photographers, and a SWPP master. It's an honour to have you joining us tonight as our panel mentor who will guide our judges. Thank you so much, Sarah, and welcome.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you for having me. It's a delight to be here, and especially with this incredible panel that we have tonight. And I'm delighted to introduce them to you, starting with Amber Griffin. Amber Griffin is one of New Zealand's most celebrated creative portrait and commercial photographers, and she's bringing her award-winning expertise to the Australian Photographic Prize in 2025. With a bold, emotive style and a razor-sharp eye for impact, Amber's work has taken top honours across the region, including Grand Champion at the Asia Pacific Photography Awards and New Zealand Photographer of the Year at the NZIPP Iris Awards. She is a Grand Master of NZIPP and a consistent force on international judging panels. Belinda Richards is Melbourne-based, and she's best known for her bold, expressive pet portraits, full of personality, polish, and just the right amount of mischief. As the creative mind behind Frog Dog Studios, Belinda has carved out a distinctive space in the industry with work that's been recognized across the world. She's an Icon Double Master, NZIPP Master with Distinction 2, PPA Master Photographer, and Fellow of the Societies of Photographers. She's also an experienced judge and educator. Hannah Nerritt is from Stockholm, and she's a portrait photographer whose work blends storytelling, imagination, and meticulous post-production. Specializing in family, child, and fine art portraiture, she is known for her expressive compositions and a creative use of advanced editing and compositing techniques, often infused with a touch of magic and a dash of humor. She's a fellow of the Societies of Photographers, an Icon Master, and the 2024 Grand Award winner in the Creative Division at the Icon Awards. Her work is also earned top honours at SWPP, WPE, the Swedish National Championship, and the Portrait Masters. Jessica McGovern is UK-based and best known for her expressive outdoor dog portraits, blending masterful use of natural light, thoughtful composition, and genuine emotion. She's also the founder of That Tog Spot, a hub for photographers looking to grow their skills and businesses through online education, mentoring, and community support. In 2024, Jessica was named Overall Photographer of the Year at the SWPP Awards, one of the industry's highest honours. She's also a Fellow of the Societies of Photographers and a previous winner of the Society's Pet Photographer of the Year. Mandarin Montgomery is a Melbourne-based photographer renowned for her surreal landscapes, conceptual fine art, and striking live performance imagery. Her work often blurs the line between dream and reality, creating bold, story-rich visuals that challenge perception and invite deeper reflection. A Master 4 with the AIPP, Mandarin has received more than 40 national and international awards, including the Ilford Trophy for highest scoring print at the Australian Professional Photography Awards and Australian Portrait Photographer of the Year in 2013. Her work has been exhibited internationally, and she continues to mentor and support emerging photographers through her roles as judge and educator. Mel Sinclair is a photographer and artist from Ipswich, Queensland, specialising in landscape and creative imagery. Drawn to moody, misty scenes and moments of quiet drama, her work often emerges from spontaneous discovery, places that speak through atmosphere and light. She brings a fine art sensibility to her landscapes, often elevating the ordinary to the poetic. In 2024, Mel's image, The Bogans Ballet, won the prestigious Stanthorpe Art Prize, with additional finalist recognition across numerous art prizes. She's also an AIPP Master and an NZIPP Associate with qualifications in fine art and creative industries. Vanessa Macaulay, a Victorian-based photographer whose journey began in education, working as a secondary school teacher before following her passion for photography full-time. Her professional work spans vibrant school promotional images, concert and production photography, and beautifully lit portraits. Outside of client commission, she pours her creative energy into illustrative and conceptual fine art pieces that explore visual storytelling through carefully crafted composites. Her conceptual work has earned her awards both in Australia and overseas, recognized for its imaginative approach and striking post-production execution. So we have a Power Packs female judges panel this year, and I just can't wait to hear what you all have to say about this category. Now, a little bit about this category and the rules. The Photographic Artist category rules. This category celebrates the creativity and skill of composite photography across any genre or theme. While strong photographic and camera skills are essential, this category also recognizes the post-production expertise required to craft a compelling composite. Unlike other categories, images used within a composite may be from any date, but the final artwork must have been completed on or after January the 1st, 2020. So, are we ready to get started? I'm going to pull on our first 5 judges, Amber, Belinda, Hannah, Jess, and Mandarin, and we will get started with the first image. Scores, please, judges. And we have an 81, a silver award. Congratulations. Pretty tight scoring there. And can we have a comment from Hannah?
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is quite a beautiful image, the colors and the shapes of these, I guess they're tomatoes. So really well done as a still life. Now, in a category like this, we are celebrating creativity, and I think that's the little thing that I'm missing here to really take that to the next level. So something happening in this image, bug crawling on one of the tomatoes or an unusual object paired with them, something like that to just get my imagination going. But again, as a still life, it's really beautiful. So well done.
Fantastic comment. Very useful tip there as well in this category. Very well done. 81. Can we have the next image, please? And we have an 80, a silver award. Could we have a comment from Amber, please?
Certainly. This is a really, really beautiful landscape image, and I really love the way that the Milky Way part of the image in the sky is sort of echoed by the lighter parts of the water with the long exposure. I just think there's a few sort of distracting elements for me on the edges of the frame, particularly on the very left-hand side, that sort of keep drawing my eye away from those other more integral parts of the image. So just watch the edges of your frame, but a beautiful image. Well done.
Thank you very much. Can we have Melanie joining the panel and Vanessa? And Amber and Belinda, you can take a quick break and we'll move to the next image, please. And we have an 83, a silver award. Congratulations. Once again, the judges very tight across that scoring category there. Could we have a comment from Mandarin, please?
This is an absolutely exquisite image. The glow, the color palette, the narrative. It's very clever, and it's got that storybook feel. I scored it a silver, and the thing that let it down for me just slightly was there seems to be some disconnect between some of the layers. There's some blue lines around the edges of the image that sometimes connect to the actual main building, the main architectural object, but then in other parts they don't. And I don't quite understand if there's intent there. It looks like it's there's a little bit of a lack of attention to detail, but beautiful image, and I award the photographer, and I'd love to see more of this work from them.
Thank you. That's a great comment. Very useful and very well spotted. Hannah, you can take a break, and Jess, you can take a break too. And we will bring Amber and Belinda back on. And next image, please. And we have an 83, a silver award. And we have a challenge from Amber.
Yes.
Apologies.
Oh, could we not?
No challenge. Yeah,
Oh.
apologies. That was my mistake.
Okay.
We will, however, have a comment from Amber.
Sure. That's a shame. I really, really love this image. I think that I deeply appreciate all of the sort of mandala symmetry that's going on within each little part of this mosaic, but I get a story from this image that is sort of reminds me of how debilitating perfectionism can be. I feel like the perfect symmetry that you can see within all of those pieces, as it's breaking out of the square at the bottom, it just it's to me it feels like it's sort of crumbling out of the confines of the square, and I think that it's a very cleverly crafted image. I also really, really like the way that there's not perfect symmetry within the colors and all the placements. However, they do just work as one image really cohesively. So I think it's a fabulously creative piece, and congratulations to the entrant.
Great, thank you very much. And can I just have a quick comment from Mandarin as well?
I scored this a silver. I just wanted to add something for the photographer. I would have scored this in the 90s if they had have just gone a little bit more attention to detail, because the hexagons don't all line up exactly. Some do and some don't. There's gaps. So if you go back through it, it'll take you some time. But if you do, and so that attention to detail is there, it is a brilliant image. So well done.
Such a valuable feedback there. Thank you so much. Can we have a Mandarin? You can take a little break and we'll bring Hannah back on. And we'll go to the next image, please. And we have a 78, a highly commended. Melanie, you were right there on 78. Could we have a comment from you, please?
Absolutely. I read this as a wonderful interpretation of someone's personality being fragmented. So to the photographer, to potentially improve this, just give us something else that allows us to read the story here. But otherwise, beautiful image, and seriously keep working on this concept.
Thank you so much. Can we have Amber, you can take a break, and let's bring Jess back on. And we'll go to the next image. And we have an 84, a silver award. And can we have a comment from Vanessa, please?
Yeah, I'd want to first of all congratulate the photographer for using negative space in such a way that really draws our attention to the important parts of the image, and then using found objects to create a story like this. It's very clever, and probably if I was to say something to improve it, I'd just be looking at dulling down a couple of the highlights that maybe detract from the actual subject, just to keep our eye focused where you want us to go.
Thank you very much. Can we have Belinda, you can take a break, and let's have Amber back on, and we'll move to the next image. And we have an 80, a silver award. Congratulations to the photographer. Could we have a comment from Jess? You were very close there.
Yeah, I just raised my hand as well because I was just like, I just feel like I need to speak to the author. The image is really visually striking when you see it for the first time. The black and white handling's soft and it's quite pleasant to view. It's a really interesting structure that's in there, as well as the subject being placed very nicely from a compositional standpoint. For the author, just triple check your sky area. The highlights in there are broken apart. So if you're on a calibrated monitor and you're working on this file, just look above the main structures in there and through the wires. You've got pixel breakdown happening between the brightest tonality, and it's happening in sort of like almost like a oval shape at the top. So just triple check that to make sure that you're keeping your pixels intact, and so that we can view it as a pleasing image as a whole. Something to look at for the future, but really impactful image. Nice work.
Fantastic technical precision there from Jess. Thank you so much for that comment. It's really, really valuable. Can we have Mandarin back on, please? And Hannah, you can take a break. And we'll move to the next image. Congratulations, we have an 84, a silver award, and we have a challenge. Yes, we have a challenge from Mandarin. Thank you so much. You scored this 91, and I would love to have you kick off this elective challenge, which means that you get to speak, and everybody, I will pick on a few other people, and then you have the right of reply, but you don't get to rescore. So, Mandarin.
Yeah, I really wanted to talk about this image because I think it is an absolutely stunning image. It's the storytelling, the narrative of these little blokes or girls, these penguins off on their adventure. There's so much in this story, and I think the way that it's been composited is very solid. The compositional elements leading us back into the main subject. The mood of the image and all the other elements draw together this really beautiful fairy tale effect. And I'd love to hear from some of the other judges to see if we can get it up a little bit higher.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Amber. You scored this at 84, meaning that's a sort of a threshold score. So can you explain to us why you gave that number?
Yeah, I did. I really felt like I was on the precipice of wanting to give a higher score to this image, but it was the fact that I really struggled to get a clear reading on the narrative for this image. I sort of can. There's several things that I think about, but nothing is super clear to me. And the other reason that I couldn't allow myself to go up higher was that there's a lot going on, but a lot of the elements that are very small and contrasty, I find super distracting, that are in the background, like the dark, blocky seagulls. I feel like they're very contrasty, whereas the rest of the sky is a lot more muted. And in the foreground, there's just some like white dots on the rocks on both extreme corners down the bottom there. And I find they keep pulling my eye away and distracting me from the story that I'm really trying to understand from the boat.
Great comments, thank you. Jess, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so I really enjoy this image in general. I feel like it's quite fun, even though it probably has a very serious narrative that I've maybe not dialed directly into perfectly. I find it really fun, and so for the author, creativity, 10 out of 10 from me, 100%. Where I struggle with it is in some of the composite elements. The lighting just doesn't seem to match up across the scene. So we have some elements that are super bright and also have a sharper level of focus. They're a lot more in focus and clear. And then other elements that have got quite low resolution or image quality that are sitting on the same or similar focal planes. So from a technical standpoint, for me, that kind of breaks this illusion that this is a real scene. Just some things to have a look at. For example, the little clock that's up there, super sharp, like as a knife's edge. Whereas some objects immediately next to it are very soft and fluffy and have noise on them. So there's just this kind of mismatch in terms of placing those composite elements and then making it all marry up as a whole so that we don't ask a question of, is this real? Is this not? I mean, if this was real, I'd be happy to live in this dream world. But yeah, it's just something that I think the author with a little bit more attention to detail could be producing work that sits right at that top level. So I'm keen to see more from the future.
Great comment, thank you. Yeah, it's always the judges are always going to go in and look at that depth of field, that focal plane, and just check that all of those composites are lining up. Before we go back to Mandarin for your right of reply, I just want you to remind the judges to just take a look at the awards and remind yourself of the category scoring and what exactly is being asked of you to take it from, because we're currently right at the edge at 84. Mandarin, explain to us why we should come up one or even two categories.
Thank you for all those comments. They were very insightful. Jessica, I definitely agree with you. And I think that's one of the things with compositing, just to make it look realistic with sharpness and lack thereof when you're dropping back. However, this is a fantasy image. So I feel that I'm going to give the photographer a little bit of leeway here. I did score it gold, and I strongly believe that it's worth at least a silver distinction. I would love to see it gold. As far as narrative, well, I see the narrative as, this family of penguins. They're on this adventure. It might be a holiday. It might be they're moving house. And if they are, they've got everything that they need to keep them comfortable. They've got music. They've got books. They've got food. They've even got a camera, and they've got skis, which I think is quite humorous. So I think there's a lot of thought, careful thought gone into this. They've even got a little escort with that duck in the water alongside. And as far as the elements in the background, the seagulls being a little bit too contrasty and those spots on the rock, if I squint, and that's a thing that all photographers, when you're looking at your work, squint at the image and see where does your eye go to. It doesn't lead me directly to the spots on the rocks. I do find that there's some elements of brightness in the clouds, but I'm not so distracted by that because it is a chaotic scene. There is a lot of weather happening. So I think that it all goes in very well together to tell the story, and I'd love to see it go up a few points. I'm on gold.
Very well said. Thank you very much. Mandarin, you're going to stay on 91, and all of the other judges are going to enter their scores now. And we now have an 86 silver with distinction. Thank you, judges, for listening to each other and raising this up into the next category. The photographer is going to be absolutely over the moon. Can we have Jess? Actually, let's have Mel. You can take a break, and let's bring Belinda on. And we'll go to the next image. We have an 83, a silver award. Very well done. Could we have a comment from Belinda, please?
Absolutely. This is an absolutely stunning portrait. The gaze from this subject is so captivating, and the way that it's been edited is mesmerizing. I think for me to bring it up into the next level, I did score it an 86. I was on the next level, but I think maybe a little bit more story for this category could have helped. And there is just a few little issues with within the quality of the hair. I think there maybe some noise or something's been like reduction there. Noise reduction has been done, and it's just sort of it's sort of falling apart in the pixels. But the image is absolutely stunning.
Thank you so much. Very well done to the photographer for the silver award. Amber, can you sit off for a second and we'll bring Hannah back on and we'll go to the next image. Congratulations to the photographer. We have an 84, a silver award.
I would like to challenge that, please.
I didn't even have to look up. I knew that was coming. Absolutely. You scored this a 92, so you have the right to call an elective challenge. You get to speak and have a right of reply, but you don't get to change your score. So tell us why everybody needs to raise this.
Yes, so the more I look at this image, the more I find to love about it. I think it's an amazing example of great storytelling. So the story I read here, that it's about life and aging, and this person is obviously of fairly advanced years, but life is not over yet. We still have blossoms in that tree on the head. And we can also tell that it's been a good life because we still have these petals strewn around the floor. So those are positives, right? And we can also see some photographs on the ground here. And I think this person is sitting here reminiscing about that life, and that little smile is indicating that it's been a good life. It's been a good life. And this strange looking teapot is also sort of a retro futuristic sort of look to it. It also sort of takes up that theme of being in the present, looking back to past, but also having some sort of future ahead of you. So I think it all ties together really neatly. It's also technically well done. The lighting is where it should be. And yeah, this color harmony is great. So there's so much to love about this image. And I would really like to hear from my fellow judges and encourage you to take another look at this.
Great. Vanessa?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to up there with you, Hannah, so I'm not too far away at all, and interested to hear your take. And as usual, when we get to sit with an image for longer, it's just so wonderful because we get a little bit more time to read into it a bit more. Firstly, can I congratulate the photographer on putting these elements together in a way that doesn't look too unnatural. If you have a look at the sticks in the hair and all of that sort of thing, I'm seeing no annoying sharply differently, Hannah. I see it as that she's losing these petals. They are, she's down to her last few petals remaining. The rest have all fallen around her life, etc. And she's reminiscing about where she's been and what journey she's been on. So that's my take. I think I'll come up, but I'm keen to hear a little bit more about what others think.
Thank you. Mandarin, you were a little bit more conservative. What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, I scored this 81, and I think part of that reason was that I didn't quite understand the narrative. So thank you for that, Hannah. I think that's given a little bit more of an idea. I think some elements, though, that have let it down for me slightly. I keep going back to the background. I get so distracted by the background, and it's like I want to see a little bit more texture in the background or less background. Maybe the photo album and that contraption, the teapot holder could have been moved over slightly because there's quite a gap. And the other element of her top being so overlit, it keeps drawing me away from her face. And just finally, I wonder if we had have seen her hands. There's a ring on her hands that could have added to the story, because I'm getting from what you say with the growth, where are the roots? Well, maybe they are those well-worn veins in her feet. So I would have loved to have seen a little bit more context with hands in the image too.
Great comments. Thank you very much. We have a lot of, so I was going to come back to Hannah, but we've got some very keen people, judges, keen to share their opinion. So Jess, I would love to hear from you.
Thank you for giving the opportunity. This image, when I first saw it, made me smile. There's a softness to it that's really nice from an emotional standpoint. I get that point coming across. However, if you look into the image in a little bit more detail, I'm struggling to come above 84, which is where I'm capped at, which has got sound technical execution. The next category up for me would have advanced post-production, which is polished in terms of our judging criteria. That's where I can't go past that. And I don't know if the other judges have seen the things I've seen, hence why I really wanted to speak to it. On the teapot, the masking disappears. So you've got half the handle and half not the handle. The spout's half not there as well. And on the actual wooden handle, there's a bit at the top there that's missing there, if that makes any sense for those who have got access to look at the file clearly. On the side of the books, we have a similar thing. Behind the chair and under the chair, there is a similar instance. So it's those little bits that, for me, just with an extra attention to detail from the author, get right in there, match your brush softness to the focal plane that you're working on, we'd have ended up at a much higher score for me, but I'm capped by the score guidance. So unless there is another explanation for that, which I'm happy to listen to, I'm going to struggle to move.
Fantastic comments, so valuable. And Belinda, I would love to hear from you too.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I just covered it. This image is beautiful, and the look on this lady's face is so serene. And I really wanted to go into the gold range as well. I am on 82, and I will come up a little bit, but those technical issues that Jess has just pointed out, there's also another one on the right-hand side down near the floorboards. It's a bit of a smudge. They are kind of keeping me in the silver range.
Great, thank you very much. Hannah, back to you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your comments. To address the background first, I disagree that it's distracting. I think it's the perfect mix of, simple but still having some texture to it to frame this person sitting here. And I also think this empty space sort of leaves room for her thoughts. That's what I see pictured in the empty space here. That's where her memories are. In regards to the small technical issues, yes, I'm not at 100, right? I do acknowledge that there are some things that could be polished here, but they are small and you sort of have to zoom in really close to see them. So for me, the emotional impact that this image has, and it's an impressive thing to do an image that you can sit with for a long time and still see new things. And there's so many layers in this. Again, back to the theme I'm seeing here with past, present, and future all captured in one image. I think it's so well done, and I really think the author should be rewarded for it. So come up, guys.
Fantastic comments there from a panel of expert retouchers and composite artists who really know their stuff. So I'm just captivated by all of the collective wisdom we've got here. Thank you so much. Hannah, you're going to stay at 92 and everybody else can rescore. And we've gone to a silver with distinction. We have an 86. Thank you so much, judges, for that impassioned and incredibly useful discussion. Thank you so much. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have Jess taking a little break? And let's bring back Mel. And we'll move to the next image. And we have an 81, a silver award. Could we have a comment from Vanessa? You were very close there.
Yeah, and I was awarding the photographer or rewarding the photographer for presenting us with a really painterly aesthetic and a really intriguing image that we want to look further into, and we're rewarded when we go deeper because we can see to the horizon. There's depth in there as well. I found that just possibly the front subjects were just a little bit blocky, and if I could have just gathered a little bit more about their shape, etc., and their colours brought out a little bit, I might have been even a little bit more intrigued and stayed in the image a little longer.
Great comment. Thank you so much. Let's have Vanessa. You can take a break. And we'll bring Amber back on. And we'll go to the next image. And we have an 82 silver award. Congratulations to the photographer. Amber, would you like to comment on this one? You scored this bang on 82.
Certainly. I think that this is a really beautiful, ethereal, almost mystical portrait of this gorgeous animal. I really love the muted color around the entire image. For me, I really just wanted to see a little bit more, maybe clarity brought into the dog's face. To kind of really make that the center of attention. I just felt like the clarity was lacking a little bit in there, but I think that the composite work that's being done here is really quite good. And congratulations to the photographer on the silver award.
Indeed, thank you very much. Can we have Mel taking a break? And let's bring Jess back on for the next image. Next image, please. And we have an 84, a silver award, and we also have a challenge from Miss McGovern.
If I can, I love this picture, guys. Give the snail some loving. In terms of, sorry, probably shouldn't start a challenge like that. I really love how simple yet effective this image is. The fact that the author has been so brave to use completely dropped off black in a competition image should be, in my opinion, applauded, because it is complete bravery at this stage. The snail is beautifully lit, as is whatever the object is that the snail is upon. Sometimes with images, they can just be interesting to view and allow you to develop your own narrative and story when you're looking at them. And I feel like that's what this does. I reckon if you asked 10 different people, they would each pull a very different potential narrative from this scene. For me, I would take this as potentially a sort of like wheel of life situation, a disc that just keeps spinning, because there's no actual kind of detail in that shape apart from the lines that run in the circle. And then the only bit that's lit with this lighting that comes in from that angle is the snail that's beautifully positioned on that circle. It's neither right in the middle at the top or anywhere else. It's really nicely placed. So for me, I think just as a visual nature of this image, it's so striking. You can't help but to take a second look. So I'm sitting fairly comfortably in the gold category because I think this does show confidence in its originality and its precise technical control and its minimal distractions. So I was like, how can I not give it that grade here? So I'd love to hear from you guys in terms of what you're seeing in this, and hopefully you'll give it maybe a few more points.
Thank you, Jess. On the other end, we have Mandarin. You scored this a little bit lower, so I'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yeah, I scored this 78 and I feel a bit mean now because it is a beautiful image and I definitely agree with all of your points, Jessica. I guess because it is quite a minimalist image, that makes it perhaps a little bit more prominent if there is something technically that seems to be an issue. And we've got these beautiful grey tones that are really silky smooth, and then you kind of go into this jarring into the shadows where the image really falls apart. And I just wish that the transition was a bit smoother into those shadows. The other thing that really sort of struck me was the poor old snail, is the way that it is, it looks like it's been composited with it could be composited a little better. There doesn't seem to be, especially not in.
We got a bit of an internet connection there, so I'm just going to go to Hannah, and then we can come back to Mandarin later. So Hannah, what would you like to say?
Thank you for challenging this, Jess. I think it's an interesting image and I love that we get to talk about it. I fully agree that this is a visually striking image. I gave it an 83, and I think for the exact same reasons as Mandarin we're trying to tell us here. So part of it is there's the banding and the transitions from light to dark on this circular object in the middle. And the other thing is the compositing of the snail onto this. So particularly at its tail, it could use a bit more shadows underneath it to make it really look at it as if it's actually sitting there. So for those reasons, I was struggling to come up, but I'm listening and I'm willing to come up a few points.
Yeah, apologies, Mandarin. You dropped off for a second, so I went on to Hannah, but I think she covered what you were going to say. Yes, she's nodding yes in the yes to me. So we can come back to Jess. Your right of reply.
Thank you. Oh, it was really good to hear what you guys were seeing, and it's and to use Hannah's own words against her, I'm not asking for 100 here, you know. So in terms of the points that you've mentioned, the tail of the snail, I didn't think I'd be rhyming that today, but the tail of the snail that we have here, I do think perhaps it could have maybe some more shadow on it, but only at the frontmost edge, because of how the lighting's hitting that end, there wouldn't necessarily be shadow detail there in my interpretation of this moment. How that disc shape falls off into black, I think there could perhaps be some slightly softer gradation on it, but I don't think that that constitutes such a large point drop from my interpretation of the scoring criteria that we're working to today. And I think that actually the boldness and the choice of using that black still wins out over the application of it in this specific instance. But I am listening, of course. I just hope that you guys listen to me too.
Fantastic comments, and I just love the judges are pulling out the big guns for their debating skills at the moment, and you know, that fantastic debating going on here. So Jess, you're going to stay at 92. Judges, listen to everything that's gone on, take another look at the image, take a look at the scoring categories, and you can enter your new score now. Such good teamwork. A silver with distinction, an 86. Two vitally important points to the entrant who has gone up an entire category and now has a silver with distinction. Well done, judges. Let's have Mandarin taking a little break. And let's bring Mel back on for the next image. We have an 85, a silver with distinction. Very well done. Could we have a comment from Hannah?
So I think this is some amazing storytelling again going on here. These little guys going on an adventure. They've packed up their car. And I just love the pose of the driver here. So relaxed and so focused on what he's doing and so cute with all this top hat there. So there's so much to love about this image. To make this go up even further, I would pay a bit more attention to detail when doing the compositing. So for instance, the depth of field doesn't quite match up between all the elements here. We have some pretty sharp things at the far end of this car, for instance, the curtain, and then we have some blurry things in the middle, like the ceiling above the driver. So just being a bit more consistent with that would help elevate this image. But it is a fantastic piece of whimsical and amazing storytelling. So well done.
Thank you so much. Belinda, Hannah, you can take a break and we will bring Vanessa back on and we'll move to the next image. And we have an 82, a silver award. And we also have a challenge from Amber. So this is an elective challenge. You get to speak and then you'll have a right of reply.
Okay. I am on 88 for this image, and the reason that I think that this belongs in at least the silver distinction range is for the emotive qualities that this image has. For me, this image feels like a goodbye of some description. There's a real element of sadness between the two people here, and it feels to me like the woman in the foreground is kind of falling away almost. And I think the thing that really elevates this image for me is how the nose of the man in the background is just kissing the woman's nose as she's fading away and falling down. I just think it's a really, really beautiful piece, and I think that it deserves to be in the silver distinction range.
Great, thank you, Amber. I would love to hear from Jess, because you scored this as 79, and I know that's a very specific score to give, and there must be a good reason. So I'd love to hear your thought process on that.
Yes, it is, and I'm with Amber in terms of everything that she's just said. Everything. I get a lot of emotion coming from this image, and I think that actually, if we look at the merits of the image in terms of the author's control, there's been a great deal of control in terms of the tonal range, which is then where I struggle. So it's almost like a tale of two halves here. Forgive me, I don't have very good fashion knowledge at all, but the bangle thing, the jewelry on the wrist of that arm that's closest to the right hand side of the frame is so bright. The highlight on that is the brightest part of this image by a country mile. Huge margin. And that means that how we as humans view an image, we will tend to always gravitate towards the lightest part of the scene and then move around the image from there. And so we look at the image and we're pulled to the bangle, and then we go around and we're pulled back, and we keep getting pulled back and back and back. And the story that's happening here is in that delicate moment that's happening at the complete other side of the image. And so from the author's perspective, perhaps a different lighting pattern, sort of different lighting pattern, either more control in post, but preferably just remove that item if it's going to be a reflective piece that's going to cause a lot of problems. That's the part for me that I can't come back from, and the center of interest just falls apart. So it'd be interesting to hear, Amber, your interpretation of that piece.
Before we come back to Amber, can I hear from Belinda? Just unmute yourself.
I knew I'd be the first one. Thanks for the chance to talk. I actually really enjoy this image. I think from a technical perspective, aside from what Jess has just said, because I do totally agree about the bangle. I think otherwise, technically, it's a really beautiful image. What I'm struggling with is what Amber loves about it the most is I'm not feeling the emotion from these two. I'm not feeling the connection here. Yes, sit right in the center there where we've got the two noses touching, but this image is just repeated and put on different opacities as it goes down. They're not different frames. There's no sense of urgency or emotion, or I don't know. I'm not feeling that in this particular piece. So I was on an 83, so I'm not like super low, but I'd love to hear more about how you feel about that, Amber. Thanks.
Amber, you have the right of reply.
Sure. You know, Jess, it's funny. I wholeheartedly agree with you that the lightest and usually most contrasting part of the image is where the eye always goes first, and that is normally a real pet peeve for me. But for some reason with this image, that bangle, I mean, I see it, but it just really doesn't bother me. And I think that for me, the beautiful emotion between these two subjects just trumps it. And I really keep coming back to the two noses just touching there as like this kind of final little kiss goodbye. I agree with you, Belinda, that it's obviously not something that's all being done in camera. But I just don't think that matters. I mean, we're in a category where you're allowed to experiment with post-production and layering and all of those things. And I think that it's been done really successfully here. I think that this artist has created a really, really beautiful and emotive image. And if we look at the scoring criteria in silver distinction, showing originality or emotional resonance. And for me, it really does portray an emotion. And I can't make you feel it, but I hope that you can see a little bit of what I see and come up just a few more points.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for your comments. And Amber, you're going to stay on 88, and everybody else, you can reflect on what's been said and enter your scores now. And we have come up a few points, and we have an 84. We're still a silver, but an 84 is a very strong silver. So thank you all for listening. Can we have Belinda? You can take a little break, and we will bring Mandarin on super quick for the next image. We have a 79, highly commended, but we have an automatic challenge.
Oh, yes, we do. I thought that I might be low here. I gave this image an 89, and I think that this is actually a really, really clever piece of still life that talks about some of the, well, really what I sort of see as two of the biggest threats to us and humanity at the moment. We see the hand creeping through the back there, and I feel like that is representing the threat of AI coming in. It's like a creepy kind of robot hand that's just coming over the top of the then artful and theatrical parts of humanity in here. And then the glass in the front, to me, those two ice cubes represent giant icebergs under the sea. And it's just kind of, it could be like in the Titanic, where you can see you can see the top of the iceberg, but underneath you just really don't know how big it is and what level of the threat is. So that is the reading that I get from all of these elements. I feel like they've been very intentionally all placed there. And I would love to hear what you guys think about that.
Incredible reading of that story. I was captivated there for a second. Mel, would you like to comment, please?
Yeah, look, I scored this a 79, and I was bang on the average. And I initially didn't read all of that, but thank you for that interpretation, Amber. That's just broadened the whole thing out incredibly for me. Every element in this is intentional, and I did pause and initially struggle on the dominance of the glass over all the other elements. I was trying to reason as to why that was more forward than the rest of the elements. So, listening definitely, and I'm keen to hear about what the rest of the panel has to say about it.
Thank you. Comment from Vanessa, please.
Thank you. Again, just when we get to sit with an image, it does really help. But I'm struggling. No, first of all, I'd like to say that the lighting and the handling of the glass is beautifully done. Obviously, this photographer has a real skill for that, photographing still lives and capturing glass, which is a really difficult thing to do. But that sits in that well executed work with sound technical and clear intent, which is our highly commended kind of range. I felt a complete disconnect between the objects and that's okay. We don't. Every image doesn't have to be a story. It can sometimes be just a description of objects. So that's where I sit at the moment. I could see this being a really good advertisement for a nice glass of scotch.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jess, would you like to speak?
I was sort of like coming off the back, I guess, of Vanessa, really, in terms of like, I'm not 100% sure that this is the right category for this image. And I don't know whether that's something that, as the live judging panel, we would have as an option to discuss that, maybe open, maybe more appropriate. That's largely because, honestly, Amber, I didn't get that. And I feel like it's good to be honest and just say, I still don't get that narrative now. I think that's a reach from how I interpreted it. I loved the two primary colors in here that are working well, the blue and the yellow. I think they work really nicely from a color harmony standpoint, but that's about where it ends for me. So I think if the author was trying to push that narrative and have a narrative come through within this category, which again, it doesn't have to have, perhaps a different placement or a different selection of objects to give them that kind of triad or that narrative coming through, just so that it made it a little bit simpler without handing it on a plate to judges. Because even with that wonderful read into the narrative, genuinely it was, I still don't see it, sadly, and I wish I did. So I'm looking at a collection of objects that don't make any sense, and I struggle with that to form any form of emotional connection to it.
Great comments. Thank you very much. We don't have a right of replies. This is an automatic challenge, but Amber, you do get to rescore. So if everybody can... sorry, I've just had, before we rescore, we've had some more people who want to comment again. So I do, as this is an auto challenge, I do want you to have that voice. So Mel, did you want to speak?
I'm sorry, I forgot to put my hand down earlier.
Okay, no worries. Okay, in which case we will all rescore, including Amber. Okay, we now have an 82, a silver award. Thank you, judges. Congratulations to the photographer. Can we have Mandarin taking a break? And Amber as well. And we'll bring Belinda and Hannah on, and we'll move to the next image. And we have an 86, a silver with distinction, and we have a couple of challenges here. I will go with Belinda I will take your challenge. So if you'd like to
Okay.
start speaking.
All right. Absolutely. What an emotional impact this image has. This woman, it took a long time for me to put my score in, because I don't hand out golds very often, too easily, and when I do, I want to make sure that it's for the right reasons. There's so much impact and emotion in this image. She is clearly suffering from something that's keeping her in a wheelchair. And I'm assuming at some point she was a professional dancer. And as somebody who is not able to do all the things that she used to do because of a back injury, this really speaks to me, and really hit me in the gut. I think it's just beautifully done. It's beautifully lit. The elements are gorgeous. I'm not going to mention anything bad about it. I'll wait to see what you guys have to say, but I think that this photographer has come up with a really amazing concept to really emote how people who acquire an injury or something that's keeping them in a chair like this feel and can miss the things that they used to be able to do. So yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys all thought.
Great, thank you. Vanessa.
Yeah, well, I'm right up there with you. I scored this a 90 because I saw all that you saw in the story there, and I think it's very eloquently and elegantly told to us. The poise and the pose from this woman is rather remarkable. So she holds our attention. I think the other thing I just wanted to say was that maybe when something is printed, we don't always get the chance to zoom into 100% like we're doing. Sometimes when we're zooming into 100%, you might then see that some elements might not quite sit together as perfectly as you would want the eye to see them. But when it's printed, or when you look at it at its normal viewing point, you're not going to see those things. So I'm preempting some conversation about maybe some of those elements not quite sitting together. At first, I was a bit disconcerted by the crop. I thought there was a lot of negative space, but I think that's been well and truly done deliberately, to let us know that maybe she feels a little more diminutive with this condition, and can't fill the space like maybe she did when she was on stage. I'll leave it for other people to go a bit further.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hannah.
Yeah, I was at the other end of the scale. I scored this a 79, and I will acknowledge that maybe that was a little bit harsh, but I have two things that I want to point out. So one thing is that there's a lot going on here. I think this would have been a super strong image if we had just had those wheelchair handles and the ballerina shoes, taking away the wings and the cage. That to me would have made it much more simplistic, but also much stronger in its storytelling. Second thing is there are some issues with the compositing, unfortunately. So this cage looks very sort of just placed on top. There are no shadows from this cage falling onto her face and her body, which there should be if this was there for real. And some of the strands of hair are going behind the cage where they should be in front of it, and maybe even vice versa. So a little bit more work on the compositing there would have helped as well if that cage were to be kept in. But I am listening. I do agree that there's a strong emotional story here, and I will come up a little bit into silver.
Great, thank you. Jess?
Yeah, I've got very little to add based on what's been covered. It's an incredibly strong image, as everybody has said. And I got the narrative. I've struggled sometimes with narratives. I got this one, so I'm quite proud of myself for that. And that means the author's done a fairly good job as well of telling the story. I'm at the other end of the spectrum as well. So I'm closer to Hannah here. The impact of what's happening in the center of the image is great. However, even if we don't zoom into 100% like Vanessa's alluded to, we can still see that there's a clear layer edge down the entire left-hand side of the scene. So the layers they're not there. And so when we have to decide where to place the image in terms of our scoring guidelines, would this realistically be that suitable for exhibition or professional portfolio, having that issue in place? And therefore, how much of a benefit of the doubt do you give the narrative and the storyline? And so for me, I went slightly into that because I felt like it was strong enough to overcome some issues. The wings are incredibly noisy with what looks like a corrected chromatic aberration edge, which has been corrected, but it still sits at odds with the rest of the scene. So for me, I struggle to move massively with something like that in the scene. And I think just with extra little bit of attention to detail and retouching, this image could sit incredibly high. I'd love to see it at that point. That would be great. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting.
Could we have the right of reply, please, from Belinda?
Absolutely. Thank you, judges. Thanks, Vanessa, for your support. Just to sort of talk about a few of the issues. Yes, the wings are incredibly noisy and they're not placed very well. In the composite, there is a halo around it. I will acknowledge that. And I can also see the line down the side from where the layer is moved. The layer mask is probably moved. And these are definitely things that need to be addressed within the image. However, I think that the overall image and the thought process that's gone into this and the narrative outshines that. I think, Hannah, you sort of said it would be better without the wings and the cage. I kind of disagree. I feel like, yes, there are some technical issues there, but she's in a wheelchair. She clearly hasn't been like that all her life. So now she's feeling caged. She can't fly the way that she used to when she was a dancer. She's got all this room around her and she can't utilize it. She, like Vanessa said, she probably feels smaller than what she used to and can't fill the space that she's in anymore. Look, there are some small technical issues here. They're really, but to me, they're really quite small. And I really think that the emotional impact of this image and the thought process it's gone through really needs to be rewarded. And I think that, yeah, I'm on a 92. I would love to see you all come into the gold range with me. So yeah, take another quick look and come with me. Come on.
Thank you, Belinda, for that was really heartfelt. I really appreciated your reading of that image. Belinda, you're going to stay at 92. Everybody else, just reflect on what's been said and you can re-enter your scores. And we have a 90, we have a gold. Judges, what an amazing job you just did. I can see them all like going like this and being all happy and that's just superb teamwork. Thank you so much. Can we have a Mandarin coming back on the panel and Belinda, actually Jess, you can take a break. So Mandarin's on, Jess is off, and we'll move to the next image. And we have an 87, a silver with distinction.
I like a challenge. I like a challenge.
Yeah. She's jumping out of her chair. Mel is going to challenge this, and we're going to have a discussion. Take it away, Mel.
What an amazing piece of emotive art we've got here. This image just, oh, this woman is life. She's Earth Mother. She's coming from the earth and just giving life, and regeneration is abound here. It's all framed beautifully in a classic frieze sort of a shape, stuff that you see in like Greek mythology and all of that. And it's just such a powerful piece of visual communication. I really would love to know what my fellow judges think. This is a gold image through and through.
I love the definitive way you ended that. Let's go to Vanessa. You're a little bit more conservative, so I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, because how I loved this, you know, and I wanted to love it even more. And can I just congratulate the photographer on using tree bark to create that beautiful shroud of dress behind her. Look, it's one simple thing, two simple things, dare I say, is I can't see that the face is in focus, and I really would like to be drawn into her more, and that really let me down. Other thing, and it's pretty small, but there's just a few spots where there's some remaining edges of layers that I think need to just be refined when placing those in. That's a pretty minor detail which I would forgive if the face was a little more, drew me in a little more and was a little sharper.
Thank you, Vanessa. Hannah.
I scored this an 86, and I agree there's so much to love about this image, and I really appreciate the narrative of Mother Earth here. What kept me from going into gold was two things. So first, the eyelashes. They are obviously fake long eyelashes. I'm getting, you know, more drag queen vibes than a natural creature risen from the forest. It's just really distracting for me, unfortunately. The rest of her is so natural and beautiful. The second thing is some of the blending of the elements with her could use a little bit more work in some places. And this might be nitpicking, but her lower hand that's below her belly, the way that blends with the moss, and also the moss on her arm. But again, I am at 86. I think it's a solid silver with distinction, and I think it's a absolutely beautiful piece of work.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Mandarin.
Amazing comments, and I scored this a 92, so I'm right up there with you. I might address some of those points because I think it's well worthy of a gold. With the eyelashes, that's a relevant point, but at the same time, if she had normal eyelashes, I think it would lose a little bit of that beautiful femininity that those long, luscious eyelashes give. I don't have such an issue with the face being a little bit soft, because when I look at the image, that butterfly is so powerful. It is quite sharp, and it is, for me, the real focus of the image. And that beautiful composition keeps drawing us back into the main focus. The other thing that I think the photographer has done beautifully, besides the narrative, beside the beautiful soft colors and the ethereal nature, is the posing. Posing is always so hard with people, and I think they've really nailed the beautiful soft feminine look of the hands around that pregnant belly. So I think, you know, this is a superb image.
Thank you, Mandarin. Mel, your right of reply.
And thank you so much, Vanessa, Hannah, and Mandarin, for all of your comments. And I'm especially, you know, elated to see that Mandarin, she summed that up so incredibly well, and you know, in support of me as well in gold. Look, absolutely, I hear everything the judges have said about this image, and I really ask you just to lean in to the fantasy, and obviously, if not, silver's distinction is also amazing and would be excellent for this image. Yeah, I feel like it's been all summarized so well, but I would really love to see this image score well, and ask the fellow judges to come up with me, if not into gold, into silver distinction.
Thank you. We're already at silver distinction, so we're already doing well. to get it up into that next category. That's what you've been asked to do. So take a look at just remind yourself of that scoring category. Think about what's been said. Mel, you're going to stay at 92. Everybody else can rescore now. And we have a 90, we have a gold. Well done, judges. Very well argued. Very passionately and eloquently put. Thank you so much. Belinda, you can take a break. And let's bring Amber back on. And we'll move to the next image. And we have an 84, a silver. And we have another challenge from Mandarin.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'm on 92. Thanks for that, Sarah. Sorry, I had to jump in. I think this is a superb image. It sort of evokes Park Harrison. There's various photographers whose work this maybe pays homage to, but I think it's a really cool descriptive image and has that sort of narrative storytelling effect that I would love to hear from others. You know, these are, whether they're twins or the same person with two different sides of their personality, I think it's been beautifully outlined. So yeah, I definitely think it's worth gold.
Thank you. And Hannah, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think this is a very unusual image that certainly has impact. I scored it an 83. To me, it would have been elevated a bit if the author had cut back on some of the layers that we see in here. So there's a really nice vintage vibe to the look and feel. The look and feel is very vintage here, which I enjoy. But then this person, who I think is the same person twice, I'm not sure, but he's wearing really modern clothes and sitting on an office chair. So that's one thing for me to think about. What does that mean? And then we have all these cables and the switch and the box and the hat and the think outside the box and then the texture and the landscape in the background. There's just so many things for me to try and make sense of here. And I think it would have benefited from maybe cutting out a few of those and maybe make us focus on fewer things to read into this image. Having said that, it is an image that you can sit with for a while and probably do a lot of different interpretations on, and that should be applauded. So well done.
Thank you, Hannah. Let's come back to Mandarin for your right of reply.
Great comments. Thank you for that. And one thing that I definitely agree with you in that when people are doing these sort of images, the thought process regarding what they wear is really important. And normally that brings me down. But in this particular instance, I know that the photographer has made it looks like a deliberate effect of, even though it's the same outfit on in both instances, on the right side, it's quite a bit lighter. And so to me, as the more I read into it, it's about reading into the two personalities of the one person. And that is what they normally wear. Maybe not the top hat, but that's also talking about, you know, they're really on, they're a player, they like to party, but the clothing just represents who they actually are. So I think it's a really clever interpretation, and I definitely feel that it's worth a gold.
Great comments. Thank you very much. Mandarin, you're going to stay on 92. Everybody else, you can rescore now. And we have stayed at an 84 silver. Congratulations to the photographer. That's a really great score. And the judges are clapping for you. You can't see that, but I can. So let's take Hannah, you can step off. And let's bring Jess back on. And we will move to the next image. And we have a 78, a highly commended. Could we have a comment from Jess? You were bang on 78 there.
Yeah, sure. So, first thing I think that this author's done really well that should be highlighted is the use of movement, whether in camera or in post, in everywhere other than one point, is a fantastic way of making sure that the eye goes to exactly where you want the eye to go. So in terms of this image, it's the only thing that is still clear in the image is that person that's on the sort of like the lower left third. The hard part about it and where I'm held back is that that person doesn't seem to be doing anything, anything in a way that kind of would bring meaning to the piece and why that person is the only person that we can see clearly. And then secondary to that, in terms of if that's where we're supposed to look, that individual isn't sharp. So there isn't sharpness in that area either. So we're sort of led to almost like we should be looking here, but should we be looking here? We don't know whether we should be or not. And that's where it becomes quite difficult. So just probably drive into that a little bit neater, see if we can bring that bit more clarity to that area, and then just also be careful on that color balance piece. But overall, it's quite an impactful image, and I think there's definite grounds to use this idea moving forwards and create some really impactful work.
Thank you. Great comments there. Vanessa, you can take a break and we'll bring Belinda back on. And we'll go to the next image. And we have an 83, a silver award. And can we have a comment from Mel, please?
This is a fantastic piece of visual communication. I scored this an 85, and it's for all the whimsical elements in this. It feels like the bartenders have been gone with the wind, and I find that it's quite imaginative and lovely. In terms of doing any better or improving for the photographer, consider maybe giving us something a little bit more to cement that story if that's not what you intended, that my reading was incorrect or anything like that. Just consider how you're putting this piece together, and yeah, give us some more things so that we can touch that story a bit better.
Thank you. Great comments. And can we have Hannah back on? And Mel, you can take a break. And we'll move to the next image. scores. Okay, we have an 81 silver award. I would love to hear from Belinda. You scored this exactly 81.
Absolutely. Yeah, look, this image has incredible impact. I'm not sure what the story is, if there is a story, or we're just looking at something that's really well constructed. But I really enjoyed it. What stopped me from going up higher is some depth of field issues. We've got the pole that's holding everything up is extremely out of focus, and then when we go down to the stand on the bottom behind that is really focused, so it's not really congruent with the image itself. So just small things like that. There is a couple of little just issues on the right hand side too, where we've lost contrast, especially in that top cog, whatever it is. Just small things like that has held me back, but yeah, well done to the photographer on your silver award.
Thank you. Great comments. And we will have Mandarin. You can take a break, and we'll bring Vanessa back on. And we'll go to the next image. And we have a 79, highly commended. Vanessa, do you like to speak?
As I turn my video off as well as bring on the audio. Sorry about that, everyone. Look, beautifully, a beautiful subject, and I can tell you've got a real connection with them. I would love to see their head turn to us slightly. That intent of a great, this would be a great makeup advertisement. Because you've got the ability to that control, I'd go in there and just clean up those. There's a few little loose hairs around her lips and stuff like that, and what I call housekeeping. I think if you gave it a little bit of attention that way, it might really lift it up to the next level.
Thank you. Let's have Jess, you can take a break, and let's bring Mandarin back on, and we'll move to the next image. Still waiting a score. Mandarin, have you entered your score? Okay, and we have a 79, highly commended. And we have a challenge, I believe, from Amber.
Okay. This is one of the most original interpretations of an incredibly over-photographed and iconic bridge that I'm sure we all know. I've seen so many photos of the London Bridge, and this is the most original photo I think I've ever seen. Um, I absolutely love the restrained color palette that the photographer has used. I really, really like the high contrast, blown out parts of the image. And I think that that they've created a beautifully unique composition. I think purely for the originality of this one, it really deserves to sit in the Silver with Distinction range.
Thank you. Can we hear from Hannah?
Yeah, so I agree with the fact that this is an original take on something that we've seen many times before. I score this as 76. I think there are some technical issues in here that would need to be addressed. Some of the highlights are very blown, and there's some moire patterns in the sky, particularly at the lower end. Addressing those could really help this bring up, because I do agree with Amber that we do see a good use of creativity here and a good use of imagination. And also I enjoy the color scale. So good things, just work on the technical bit, and this would have been a bit higher for me.
Thank you, Hannah. Amber, you'll write a reply?
Sure. I really can't see those moire patterns in there on my screen, but I think that the blown out parts of this image are actually a real strength of this piece. And I think that they really add to the magic of this. This photographer deserves to be rewarded for creating such an artful image of something that is otherwise really a very, very different thing in real life. It's highly original, highly refined, and it's a really, really unique interpretation of this structure. So for the magic and for the originality, I really think that you need to give it a few more points, please.
Thank you, Amber. You're going to stay at 87, and everybody else can rescore now. And we're still at a 79, highly commended, but well championed, Amber. And I'm sure the photographer is absolutely delighted with your passion for that image. Thank you. Let's take Amber, you're going to have a little break, and we will bring Mel back on, and we'll go to the next image. And we have an 80. So I was waiting for a score to come in, but it was already in. We have an 80 silver award, and I'd love to have a comment from Vanessa, please.
I rewarded the photographer for giving us a really a unique and fun and gritty and striking image that really caught my attention the moment I saw it. So that they're all really positive pluses that we want to see when we're given such a short time to to grab our attention so quickly when we've just got such a short time to view it. Congratulations. Probably to take it to the next level is not to quite have your blacks quite so black and your whites quite so white, is just give us a little bit more detail into some of those shoes.
Great comment, thank you. Belinda, you can take a break, and we will bring Jess back on, and we will move to the next image. And we have an 86, a silver with distinction, and we have a challenge from Mandarin.
Thank you very much, Sarah. It took me a little bit of time to take this image in. Technically, it's absolutely beautiful. The really soft, muted color tones, the expression on her face. And then I was trying to see the connection. And when I looked at that image on the left that she's holding, I'm not sure if you call it a diptych or one of those older photos. It's the teacup tells its tales. So it's sort of a play on back in those days, maybe that's how it was. But now the iPhone is what is telling the tales. And it's quite intriguing that the phone isn't in her hand in the image that's in the phone. So it's a bit of a play on your mind. So for that, ingenuity in the thoughtfulness of it, I think it's beautiful in gold.
Wow, well spotted. Great interpretation. Can I have a comment from Vanessa, please?
Yeah, thanks, Mandarin. And I look, I captured the story. I think it's a tale of entertainment in the old days and entertainment today. That's not lost on me. And I really appreciate what the photographer's done to bring us that story. I just think that if we've gone to all of this effort, there's a few other things that need to be looked at. And there are some technical issues. And I see some out of gamut colors in the hair, and maybe just some refining was required in that, the cutting out of the hair, and then just a little bit of a cleaning up and things like that that just were distracting me at the time. I also feel that the framing, maybe you can explain it to me, she just feels really weighted down in the bottom of this frame, and I'm not too sure why that's so disconcerting, but it is. And the final thing that really got me was that I just thought, after all of this beautiful work that's been done, is that that glove that's holding the phone just feels so clumsy and awkward, and that if you've got the ability to use a little bit of liquify, etc., why you wouldn't just bring a bit of elegance back to the shape in her hands and her arms.
Great comment. Thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, I scored this as an 84. I think it's a quite a beautiful image. I was struggling to understand the narrative, so I'm glad you challenged so we get a chance to chat about it. Some things for the author to consider. So if you zoom in on the iPhone, the picture that's supposedly on the screen of the iPhone is not quite following the lines of the phone. It's spilling over onto the case. So that is a compositing mistake that needs addressing. And there's also a bit of background spilling in on top of the iPhone case as well. So if you address that, I think this would be an even stronger image.
Thank you, Hannah. Mandarin, your right of reply.
Amazing comments from everyone. Thanks, Vanessa. With the hair, I didn't quite see that. It is possibly there. I am on an ISO, but I absolutely applaud you picking that up. For her sitting quite low in the image, that is relevant, but it wasn't something that brought me down below a gold. I still think the narrative and the composition is enough to hold me up into that. With regard to those elements with the image not quite sitting on the phone, yes, I do agree with that. I probably would have gone a little bit higher. The gloves on the hands, they don't really annoy me that much. I feel that they are sitting as gloves do. And I do believe that it's just been beautifully put together in the narrative, the colors, the tones, her expression, the storyline. So I'd love to see a few more points if possible.
Thank you. Mandarin, you're going to stay on 93, and everybody else can re-enter their scores. And we now have a silver with distinction still, but we have a precious point that has gone up. So thank you for that wonderful conversation and discussion of the narrative. Can we have Hannah, you can take a break and we will bring back Amber. And we will move to the next image. And we have an 83 silver award. Could I have a comment from Jess, please?
Yes, of course. This image for me, I almost feel like I am there, but also not there. It's a strange one for me because it puts me in a different place, but also feels like a really old painting at the same time. And I think that's quite a nice feel to get from the scene. I think everything that's in the image is there because it should be there. To elevate the image a little further, there is one very dark section in the center of the image, sort of towards the back. So in front of the buildings, but behind the boats. I think it's trees. And there is no detail in there or shapes kind of running through that we get, but there is detail in deepest, darkest shadows on the boats and on some other areas on the building. And it's just a shame that that area didn't get that same level of care. It's a bit otherworldly for me. The moon, I think it's the moon, in the sky sits really close to something that looks like it could be a sensor spot before texture's applied over the top. So just from a competition standpoint, if you're submitting this image again, I'd whip that out, even if it's a mark on the texture or something like that, just because it leads us to think it might be something that we don't want to be seeing in a competition like this. So a couple of little checks on it, but it's got such a nice feel. I'd quite happily put this on my wall.
Fantastic, thank you. Let's have Vanessa taking a break and we will bring Belinda back in and we will go to the next image. Scores, please. And we have an 86 silver with distinction. Could we have a comment from Belinda, please?
Sure. I scored this image in 88. Found it really quite impactful, and I wanted to reward the photographer for such an impactful image. It's beautifully done. The color palette's gorgeous. I love the narrative, you know, the AI and computers and automation and all the zeros and ones are overtaking our creativity when they should be vacuuming my house. I really like this commentary on this on what we're all sort of facing at the moment, you know, and it's sort of done in a bit of a humorous way. You know, AI has got us by our throats. We either conform or get out, really. So congratulations to the photographer on your Silver with Distinction. It's a really great image.
Thank you. Yep, congratulations, 86, Silver with Distinction. And can we have Hannah back on, and Mandarin, you can take a break, and we'll go to the next image. Scores, please, judges. And we have a 78, highly commended. And could we have a comment from Mel, please?
Yeah, congratulations to the photographer for your highly commended award. This image evokes feelings of rush hour in Sydney to me, and I think all of the elements are lovely, but I think there's just too many of them smashing together, and in order to form a clear narrative, we need a little bit more idea and a little bit of a simplification of what you've presented here.
Thank you very much. Yeah, congratulations on your 78, highly commended. Could we have Mel, you can take a break, and we will bring Vanessa back on. And we'll move to the next image. We have an 84 silver award, and we have a challenge from Jess McGovern. Jess, take it away.
Yeah, I think this image is so weird. I've got no idea what's happening, and I don't need to. I'm so here into this story. I don't know if any of the other judges can glean a narrative, but sometimes the image doesn't have to have a narrative to just be so creatively interesting that I want to sit and stare at it all day. The way that this is put together, I have so many questions, and I'm absolutely content for once in having none of them answered. It's almost as though we've taken some different elements from urban architecture and sort of like landscape architecture as well, and just sort of like stuck them together in this front. I don't know whether the kind of dimples in the picture are some form of like braille or something, like seeing and feeling the way through that. I don't know enough about that to be able to speak to it. But compositionally, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. And the way that we can interpret some kind of like rising landmass because of the nature of that kind of almost warp in the front of the picture just leads me straight in. I'm confused and also in awe of these holes that are appearing. And I'm thinking how well they've been sculpted by the literal artist that's created this to make that so believable. But then at the same time, that we have this sort of like added element where we know we're not supposed to believe it. Like it's on that borderline of I'm so drawn into this story and I'm thinking I want to know what this utopia kind of world is that we're looking at. But at the same time, we know it's not real simply because of the way that they've almost done like 2D stacking of skyscraper screens kind of like working their way backwards, and then you have those two planes flying in unison up at the top. Compositionally, this is just so on point and I'm in awe of it. I could sit and look at this for days. I'd love to know what everyone else sees in it.
Yeah, I would love to hear from Belinda. You were on the other end of the scoring range here, so yeah.
I was, yeah. So I was on a 78, so I was quite down in the highly commended range. But look, for all the reasons that you love it, the reasons why I actually felt I couldn't come any higher. This is an incredible impact. I mean, there's no doubt about that. The leading line straight through to that city is incredible. But then I couldn't figure out what I was looking at. What's the story here? What's going on? Why are we looking at it? And then when you zoom in, the degradation of the actual file itself is kind of renders the image quite hard to make things out in that city skyline. There's a big blurry mass, which I imagine were trees, possibly just right along that horizon line before the buildings start rising up. Look, the holes, they're intriguing. I really, and perhaps I'm a little bit harsh, but it was just, really hard to read. And then once I sort of looked in and seen over sharpening and the degradation of the file, it just sort of, maybe you could speak to that. I will listen.
Okay, Amber.
Yeah, I was right on the average at 84. And I do feel in between you guys. I really appreciate the intrigue of this image. But I just think that from a technical perspective and also from a technical perspective, the tree feels so badly composited in there. When you have a look at it, like all of the clear cutting on the tree is just kind of subpar. But for me, the crop just feels so off. I feel like compositionally it would make so much more sense if a lot of that foreground had been taken out. I feel like also the crop at the top is too crushing. So I feel pretty comfortable on an 84, unless you can explain any of those things to me, Jess.
Okay, can we have a quick comment from Vanessa before we come back to Jess?
Yeah, I just thought I'd quickly explain my interpretation of the story. I'll do it really quickly. I think that the photographer is showing us the last tree in existence before it falls into the abyss. I read that as being some kind of smoky haze between this the front city and the back city. That's all I've got for you. But I just thought I would add that in if it helps.
Very helpful. Thank you, Jess.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting interpretation. I'm here for that one. In terms of the note about the crop, I feel like if we just take off that bottom section, we lose this feeling like we're being drawn in because of that almost bend that's in the front foreground. I don't know if that makes any sense, but if you were to block it out, it's almost as though it then becomes very flat without that lean in. It's as though we're kind of coming up and almost over a hill. So looking at all of the other judges, we can see them on ours and everyone's just got their hands up. But yeah, so if we were to take that part out, then I think we lose a lot of the image. And the same if we add more space to the sky. I feel like the real crux of the storyline is this front section. And it's almost as though if that wasn't there, then we miss the whole rest of the impact that comes from it. The image quality, I don't disagree that this has perhaps been maybe oversampled. So maybe it's been enlarged at some point in its journey and we've had a bit of degradation. I'm not against that, but I would say that the grain that comes through in it, I feel actually adds a bit of nostalgia and a feeling like it's an aged piece. So I'm kind of with you, but I'm not. And I feel like this was an intentional decision by the author to add some element of that kind of essentially non-AI, non-futuristic feeling to this image. I think that sits actually quite nicely with the narrative that Vanessa pulled out about the tree. I really
Thank
like
you
it.
very much. Jess, you're going to stay at 92 and everybody else can rescore. And we're still at an 84, a very strong silver award. Thank you very much. And for the next image, I will bring Mandarin back on. And Jess, you can take a break. And we'll move to the last image. And we have an 80, a silver award. Hannah, you were right there on 80. Can we have a comment from you?
Absolutely. I think this is a visually really beautiful image, and the color harmony works perfectly here with this turquoise aqua colored water and the dry sand golden ground here. It's also a really nice composition with the letting the water take up a little bit more space than the half. I wish there was some sort of focal point here to capture my interest. So something to break this uniformity of the image, maybe a boat in the water or some object on land here, just to have somewhere to focus my interest. But it's a beautiful piece, so well done.
Thank you, Hannah, and congratulations to the photographer with their 80 Silver Award. That's our final image. I feel like this has been not a judging of photographic art, but a masterclass in photographic art. So thank you, judges, and I'll hand you back over to Robin.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Funny enough, I actually walked away with the same sort of feeling. I learned so much in that session, and it really did feel like a masterclass. What an incredibly wise panel. Seriously, the information that you're able to share with our audience tonight is just sensational. And I have no doubt at all it will help them bring their images to the next level. So that brings us to the close of the online live judging for the Photographic Artist category. So thank you to our judges. Your feedback was sensational, on point, and so incredibly detailed. It's very much appreciated. If you didn't make it in the top 30, have a listen to all of that incredible advice, pay attention to detail, and I tell you what, you never know next year. Thank you to our amazing competition director, Daniel, and director of judging, Chris. You guys are doing a great job. Helen and Nathan behind the scenes. Really appreciate all the effort you're putting in. Huge thank you to our sponsors, Nikon, ASO, KL, Godox, Ilford, Photography Studies College, and Print Shop. Thank you so much for coming on board with us again this year. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. We hope that you've learnt plenty in this pseudo masterclass. So I'm going to use that, Sarah. Thank you. Winners will be announced on Sunday, this coming Sunday, not long now, at 5 p.m. onwards. So tune in then. And we will be back tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. for the judging of the wildlife category, and it is sensational. So wake up, have your breakfast, grab your coffee, and join us, because I can promise you it will be well and truly worthwhile. We'll see you then.
photographing the way I do, but with my colors, this will change everything.
I got to see each frame, each position of its wing, and they're so beautiful that I have never seen before.
Being able to move quickly and working at my brain's pace and getting those shots in the moment. Having this camera allows you to go out and create the way you want to create.
Until you use it, you cannot even imagine what you have missed.
It's something I've never seen before in my entire life. It's something totally different.
Nikon Z6 III. Outperform.
Introducing ISO Color Edge. Precision is essential for any professional working with images. Whether you're an artist, a retoucher, or a visual effects specialist, you need to know that what you see at the start of a project is precisely what you'll get at the end. Color Edge monitors give consistent, reliable accuracy that guarantee no surprises within your color workflow. So what you see in real life is what you see on screen, and what you see on screen is what you see in real life. That's precisely why professionals all over the world trust ISO Color Edge for their image creation. ISO Color Edge. Discover living, breathing color.